and Michelle Gore is on. So, okay, well, good evening. Welcome to the April 24th special meeting of the Charter Revision Commission. I'll call the meeting to order. We all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Good evening. Let's see. I don't have any chairman updates other than what we talked about last night, so I can pass right over that. Agenda item 4, discussion on previous topics. The only previous topics we have are some deferred inputs that Commissioner Wackerman was going to help us clear up, as well as our town attorney, Attorney Piers. So, and then, of course, the recommendation or the response to the Board of Selectmen and the town clerk's thing. So we'll get into that after we get through the document. Agenda item 5, CRC attorney or town attorney inputs. We'll deal with that when we go through the document for the few that are open. So, seeing Ms. Gore, thank you very much for being here, Michelle. Appreciate your time and all your inputs and the time it took to do those. We're going to go to agenda item 6, which is review of the latest charter revision document. Now, last night, we walked through the prior meeting changes. We walked through the changes that were submitted by the police chief. We went through the submittals that were made by the Health and Human Services Director, Ms. DeMarco, who was here in person, and generally walked through the entire document just to make sure we ticked and tied everything. There's a couple little things to get through, but tonight is really Ms. Gore's show on the WPCA, WPCF. So what I'm gonna do, oh shoot, I gotta open up the document that you sent today, Phil.
So Phil did send a document that he and I worked on this morning. I believe he sent it around 3:20 this afternoon.
Yep, 3:21, accurate, yes, ma'am. So would you help me out? What's the first section that we're going to be having input?
Sure. So I know during your last meeting that I was unable to attend. You asked specifically about input for section 10. I think it was previously section 10.3 possibly of the current charter. But prior to that, we have section 9, and I'm just scrolling down to the specific section that identifies the WPCA general manager's position and the powers and duties of that position.
All right, I will get us there. Hold on one second.
Yeah, so it's listed in 9(1)A. It says the 25th entry, there's a general manager.
9(1)A, yeah, that.
So, and then I guess.
9.28.
So you get 9(1)A, and then you get to item 25 that identifies.
Okay, there it is. Page 39. I'm going to share my screen. Yep. Let's see, page 39 should get us really close.
So when I get to section 9.28.
Oh, hold on one second. Let me just share my screen, and then we can all be walking off the shame seat. Okay.
Yes, correct.
Okay, 9.28 is on the screen. Can you see it, Michelle?
I see it, and then I also have the document open separately.
Awesome. Okay. So, would you?
This is a completely new section as highlighted here. It's identifying how the general manager position is appointed, and it's being appointed by the Board of Selectmen. This is just following the course of what is typical of a water pollution control authority. When we look at the duties here of the general manager, the outline specifically that the general manager is a town employee. I think that's really important to point out. In some cases, municipalities have this position reporting directly to its board of commissioners. So it could go both ways. I think it's important for the town of Fairfield to identify this position as a manager of a town department, similar to how the Public Works Department operates with a director of Public Works. This would be similar to, on par with the director of Public Works, this position.
Okay. May I ask a quick question?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm curious about the words, general manager of the water pollution control utility.
Correct.
So what does that mean? What's the word utility mean?
The utility is the operating body of the Water Pollution Control Authority. And so
Okay.
the state statutes identify the powers and duties, roles and responsibilities of what a water pollution control authority is.
Okay.
The Water Pollution Control Authority is that board or that commission. In this case, we have a operational arm. There's always an operational arm of a water pollution control authority. And I think that's where there has been in the past for our town, there's been some confusion as to what is meant by the authority and who actually has responsibility for what.
Agreed.
So it's really important to carve out that there's an authority as identified through state statutes, but there's also that operational arm, which actually is the utility. It's that department of the town.
Okay. So is it fair to say the utility is encompassing the authority and then the actual facility?
No, so the utility is separate from the authority. The authority is our board of commissioners. The
Okay.
utility encompasses the water pollution control facility and the sewer department. Those are our two operational arms, I will say, of the utility. So we are maintaining and regulating and permitting and inspecting our collection system, which is the sewer department. We're collecting revenue through the sewer department. We work with the tax collector's office on that. The WPCF, the Water Pollution Control Facility, that's our facility itself. That's our treatment facility.
Right.
And that's inclusive of our pump stations.
Chris, the later section spells out the differences
Okay.
and defines the differences.
Okay, great. I have one other question. I'll open up to the commission. In C, it says, so we're talking about the general manager of the water pollution control utility, which is the topic, which is the title of the thing. But yet in C, we talk about the water pollution control facility
Yeah,
manager.
that was the old name. I did not update it.
Okay, so that needs to be reflective of the title.
Yeah, so there's a couple other names.
Right.
In the changes that Michelle and I made today to the other section, the Water Pollution Control Authority is defined later as the WPCA board. So I have to change that here.
Okay.
And then Mary also pointed out that A still has selectmen. So that I've updated now to select persons.
Right. Yeah. And so and again, like in B, under duties, general manager of the water pollution control utility, I would strike manager. That's just a typo.
Right. All my questions are answered. Okay.
Phil, just like a process question. You're making these on the fly then?
No, we're gonna vote on everything we're changing, for sure.
And then he'll make those, and then that's where we're gonna.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. What I'd like to do tonight is, yes, have Phil make all the changes that we vote on.
Yeah.
And then we can vote on the amended document, which you will then send to us tomorrow morning.
Well, do you want me to share my screen so you can see how it reads in the meeting?
Oh, sure. That would be great.
Okay, thank you.
That's a great idea, thank you.
And sorry, were you done? Or-
No, I was gonna open it up to any of the commissioners, so Commissioner Tresick, please.
So thanks, General Manager Gore, for coming. And this might be more of a question for the commission too. So I'm kind of thinking about your relationship to the board is somewhat analogous to like the conservation director and the conservation commission with the caveat that in that case, the commission appoints the director. That's not the situation here. But that's,
Correct.
is that
Right,
kind of
yeah.
the idea though, that that is more of the,
Correct.
okay. Thank you, just to help
Yep, that's more
clarify.
of the alignments here.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions before I make a motion just to do this
And then,
administrative changes?
Were, Phil, were there any questions that you still had?
No, Michelle and I worked through all that this morning, so.
Great.
And then all of this has been worked through with the Director of Public Works?
That's correct. And so the recommendations that I had made after the April 4th meeting of this commission that I missed, that Mr. Marsilio did attend, and
Lost her.
Are they still there?
Frozen.
Oh,
and provide some testimony. He and I also spoke this morning of that language together, and he confirmed he is in full agreement with how this language reads tonight.
and I also had a email communication with Mr. Marsilio today. He said that he was unable to attend, but he was in full agreement with Ms. Gore's inputs, and if we did need him to call, but anything longer than 10 minutes it would get him in trouble with his wife. So I said, I'm not gonna call you. So, but yes, he did confirm that he's good with the inputs.
And then, General Manager Gore, you're familiar, of course, with the digester issue.
Yeah.
Do you think that in the future, I mean, this is a hypothetical, but do you think in the future, if we had a similar issue, that the lines of authority, responsibility to address that situation, will these changes take care of that, such that we can address those situations more effectively in the future?
Yes, that was at the top of my mind as a prime example as I worked through the recommended modifications to the charter. And so I think if we move on to section 10 below, you'll actually see that come through more clearly. So this section here in 9.28 is just specific to, really outlining and carving out the position that I'm currently occupying with the town. But if we move forward to section 10 in the WPCA section, you'll see that.
I'm sorry, I have to just make a motion to make our administrative changes. So I make a motion to update paragraph 9.28 A to change Board of Selectmen to Board of Select Persons. Under B, First Selectman to First Select Person. And under C, change the Water Pollution Control Facility Manager to the General Manager of the Water Pollution Control Utility.
And to change the references in B to the WPCA board instead of Water Pollution Control Authority.
Sorry, what was that?
The references,
WPCA Board.
that references to the Water Pollution Control Authority need to be changed to WPCA board. That's what's up on the screen.
Okay, and all references to the WPCA Authority are now changed to WPCA Board. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hope? Any further discussion?
You said all references to Water Pollution Control Authority Utility?
No,
Board.
Water Pollution
No.
Control Authority.
Authority, okay, so there is, okay, utility.
You're seeing an end result here.
Right, I know, question now. The third line of
So you'll see
B
that come through in
says
section
Water
10.
Pollution Control Authority Utility.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the full title of the. But why do you add authority there, but it's not in the general manager title?
That's the part that's tripping me up.
Yeah, good point.
Is the authority?
Michelle, what is the title Water Pollution Control, General Manager of the Water Pollution Control Authority Utility or General Manager of the Water Pollution Control?
We could choose, so we have flexibility to choose that tonight. This is nothing that's outlined statutorily, so we have full flexibility on that language.
Don't get rid of authority.
I mean, there's plenty of references to the new title, General Manager of the Water Pollution Control Utility.
makes more sense.
That seems simpler than adding
Yeah,
authority.
authority kind of makes it's a little clunky, yeah, with adding that. So I'm okay keeping it if everyone else is.
So if that happens, do we change the WPCA board to the WPC board?
No,
No, because they're still the
they're
authority.
still an authority.
There's still the, yeah.
Still the authority?
They're a board of commissioners, but it's the Water Pollution Control Authority Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm trying to just get back to that spot.
See 6.28.
I know, right?
I'm glad someone else is doing it tonight.
There you go. All right, I think I'm a little too zoomed.
You just, yeah, make a, there you go, perfect.
All right, so
Okay.
water pollution control utility.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that was my question.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
So is it the WPCA or WPCA board?
WPCA board.
So the next line?
Yep.
Can you change that?
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Are we good?
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Chair DeWitt, can you please repeat that motion so I can make sure that I have it?
I think it's just to change the references to Water Pollution Control Authority to WPCA board. To change the references to,
Select men to select persons, select man to select person,
right,
and change the, in C, the water pollution control facility manager to general manager of the water pollution control utility.
And anywhere throughout the WPCA sections, WPCA utility is water pollution control utility.
Okay. And that's instead of water pollution control facility.
No.
We haven't gotten to that next section.
Water,
we
Yeah.
can do the next section next, but for now,
Yeah.
for now, the change in that respect was that it was Water Pollution Control Authority utility, and it will now be Water Pollution Control Utility.
Okay. Thank you.
okay. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of this change, say aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, there's 6 of 5. I keep doing that. 500 approved. We have 5 in attendance tonight. Just so you know, Commissioner McCann and Commissioner Blanco are absent tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Gore, you'd like us to go to section 10 point,
10.12, I believe it is now. On
Yep.
page 48.
page 48, that's right. 10.12, Water Pollution Control Authority, Board of Commissioners.
Before we get to that, so one other change that we made was in 10.7.
Oh, okay.
For Department of Public Works, Michelle clarified that the sewage system should be deleted, and that it should say building and
building
equipment under control of WPC utility.
Okay.
And the reason for that comes later when we talk about the new department, of the utility.
I trust you. I make a motion to change paragraph 10.7, Department of Public Works, section, subsection A, remove the words sewage systems and add to the end of the paragraph after Board of Library Trustees, the words and building and equipment under the control of the WPCA utility.
Second.
And then under E, we deleted and sanitary.
Oh, sorry. And under E, 10.7E, remove the words "and sanitary."
Michelle, should it be WPC utility or
It
W?
should be, correct.
WPC utility? You guys are killing me.
Well, I think we had just made the decision tonight, adding the extra word authority utility was too much verbiage.
Okay. Okay. So having that amended, I have a motion and a second from Commissioner Wackerman. Any further discussion on 10.7? Sorry?
A.
A and E. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
500 approved. Now we are at page 48, section 10.12, Water Pollution Control Authority, Board of Commissioners and WPCA, which is now WPC Authority. Utility. It is still the WPCA board, yeah.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, so it's up on our screen. Would you like to give us a quick overview? I mean, this section, for all intent and purpose, has been completely redone, correct?
Mostly redone. I think really the only section that was carried over was existing powers and duties of the Water
Yeah.
Pollution Control Authority. And then that list was also added to. So what we're looking at here is really that identification of who the WPCA
I think she needs to turn off her.
Freeze.
utility, where does the town come into play with water pollution control, and who is ultimately making those decisions? So if we walk through just 10.12A1, we're talking about the organization of operations, so the utility. We're identifying the utility as a department of the town. We're identifying what that utility is overseeing, similar to what we saw listed for public works in section 10.7. We took out the sewerage system. We're taking full control over that as our separate town department. We're overall in charge of the day-to-day operations of both the town's collection system, as well as our water pollution control facility. Again, it identifies that the general manager is ultimately overseeing all of those operations. And then it's referring to the previous section that talks about the general manager's powers and duties.
Yep. Got it.
When we look at paragraph A2, we're looking at the board and how the board is defined here. And so like 1 and 2 here, it's really, really important that we're identifying these two divisions of WPCA as separate and unique, but very much related. And I think this will clarify a lot of the confusion that had happened in the past with that example of the digester's failure. So we're identifying the board. The board is the strategic governing board. So they're looking at policy making, rule making. They provide general oversight. They make decisions in regards to our budget because we are run off of the enterprise fund. And because of that, they are approving an annual operating budget for the authority. They're also approving our capital and financial plans for our operations. So operations is developing all of those plans, but we're bringing it ultimately to our commission to evaluate, to ensure that it's meeting the strategic, and similar to how other boards and commissions of other town departments operate.
At the beginning of 2, it should say WPCA board.
Yes, right, just update.
Correct.
Got it, okay.
And then when we look at paragraph A3 here, this is where the town comes into play. And so we have the two divisions of WPCA. We have operations and we have our board. And then we have the town. And ultimately, both the department, who is the utility, who will be the new department, and the board are responsible to the town. We're both reporting to the Board of Select Persons, and this clearly defines such. And ultimately, as such, the town has that final power to make decisions above and beyond both the utility and the commission. So when we look at, again, the example of the digester failure,
exactly.
and who was ultimately responsible for addressing the work that so needed to be done in an expeditious way, I think this definitely clarifies what that path should be.
I would agree. Prior language, it didn't really, when the digester blew up, everybody was going, well, whose responsibility was it to maintain it? Mm-hmm. Now this clearly says if it blows up tomorrow, well, after this is approved, then we have to look at the town.
Right.
The town has to say, I gave you a budget, you maintained it, or I didn't give you a budget, you did maintain it, so.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, this looks great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Just, maybe a question for Phil. Does the fact that we're calling it a department, does that mean anything, like legally, or is that town thing?
It just means that it's part of the town. It's an administrative, department of the town. I mean,
So-
the town informally uses the term department
Mhm.
in a lot of different ways. Like sometimes there are departments described that are within a department, like
Sure.
engineering is defined as it's called a department, but it's really under DPW, under
Yeah.
the charter. This makes it clear that this is a separate, under the charter, a separate department,
and the department head is the
general manager.
general manager, which before, nobody had a clue. Who was, well, I mean, it was kind of the WPCA and it kind of
It
wasn't.
really didn't have one.
It was the
They didn't
person.
have one, right? So there was
Yeah.
no defined leadership role outside of that of the Public Works Director.
Right.
And then Ms. Score, there are three named roles here. Your role, the general manager, the WPCF superintendent, and the sewer department supervisor. Those are the only three, I think, that are named here.
Correct.
Those three roles already exist today?
So the WPCF superintendent, in addition to my position, exists. The sewer department supervisor is something that's sorely needed for that department. And that's a position that we'd be looking to create.
So we are potentially adding a position that doesn't yet exist and require.
That's correct. Currently I'm fulfilling that role.
Right. Well, it's kind of like when we said, well, the first selectman can hire whoever he wants in the staff.
Well, no, I agree.
It's almost the same.
Well, no, but
It's a little different. It's requiring the
Yeah.
position.
We're requiring this position.
The utility shall consist of,
Three people,
so.
only two
so
of which
this
I
gets
heard,
signed,
two of which exist today.
this gets passed, and all of a
We
sudden,
have an overall director of the department. We have, we'll say, a supervisor of the plant, and then we have a supervisor for our collection system.
but I think, just from just following the money, the WPCA who sets the budget will now have to make sure that their independent budget, their self-funded independent budget now has a budget line item that says sewer department supervisor. That will
Right,
fall
right.
on them.
Right, in our
It's an
personnel.
don't forget, it's an independent,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
I like the way you're doing that, actually. It's forcing the hand, so I like that.
Yeah, I need to.
Yeah. I got no problem with this, Ms. Gore, believe me.
As to number 3, other than its stated fact that the buck stops with the Board of Select Persons, the Board of Select Persons really doesn't have any direct role in making decisions. Is that fair?
I don't think that's fair because
Okay.
both the board and the utility are reporting to the Board of Select Persons for that ultimate decision-making power.
It doesn't say that. It says that both the utility and WPC board shall report to the Board of Select Persons. I report.
And then as such, the town assumes decisive responsibility for the management, maintenance, and operation of the system.
Okay, I read it different.
Okay.
I read it that the buck stops with the Board of Select Persons, but the Board of Select Persons is basically a pass-through of the activities we just did. Because it doesn't say the Board of Select Persons shall approve. And I don't know what decisive responsibilities means. That's just a term of art that I'm not aware of. But, if the goal was to take the problem that we had and make someone responsible, we've done that, and certainly we have a proper way for people to do their job. But I think if you read 3, it's a pass-through.
Yeah, well, I'm struggling with the word town. Who's the town? Board of Selectmen's not the town.
Yeah, that's true
right?
too.
So when it says the town assumes, so again, this gets passed, and then somebody says, who's this town guy?
Yeah.
It
Just
does,
walked in.
well, but is it?
Now he's leaving.
But, well, that's my whole point, right? As such, so if you're following your logic, that line should almost read, the Board of Selectmen assumes responsibility,
And that's, I think.
decisive
the goal.
responsibility, yeah.
I think that- What does decisive mean, Phil?
That's,
I don't mean
This
to,
was, I mean, this was Michelle's language.
okay.
So
And Phil and I talked about this language specifically this morning, and we were thinking about, we don't want to leave gray areas now that we have the opportunity to clearly define WPCA and the utilities and the town's powers and duties over our sewerage system. So this was language that I developed. I am definitely open to recommendations from others who are reading this with fresh eyes. But the intention was how I previously stated, with both of the strategic planning board and the operations department, ultimately both being responsible to the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Select Persons. And it's really the Board of Select persons or selectmen who are, making those final calls as to.
Here's your language. As such, the Board of Select Persons have the final authority over the decisions of.
Yeah,
I
that might
think
be it.
management, maintenance, I think you're absolutely
Final
right.
responsibility. Maybe not authority, but responsibility.
you want to say the,
Is the goal that, for example, if the Board of Select Persons thought that there should be some additional purchase, they could overrule the capital plan and say something has to be purchased? Is that the idea, that they could
And
actually?
it could, yeah, and they could. And they could, and that is the idea. And so, like Phil and I were just talking about a situation that could come up like that. It could be something that say it's something the Board of Commissioners, it's been brought to the Board of Commissioners by the utility. The Board of Commissioners has not approved it, but it's something the town has strong motivation to move forward on for certain reasons. The Board of Select Persons could override the commission.
Okay.
Well, but let's think about this practically. So, you go through budget time and the commission sets a budget. Here's our budget for the year. And there's money in there for management and maintenance and operation of the system, right? I don't think it's proper to say the Board of Selectmen could just say, yeah, no, I'm not fine with that. I'm gonna overrule it. Because don't forget, the WPCA has, whatever this new thing is called, has got to get its money from one place, and it's called taxpayer money. It isn't funded by any other entity, right? So it would feel to me like the WPCA board would have that responsibility for the budget. Well, they have the budget allocation.
And just knowing that we have a budget that's approved through all of the boards,
Right.
including the Board of Select Persons.
Right.
But when I asked about, I don't know, there was some change where we have to expand the sewer in order for economic development.
Right.
That's not paid by the sewage fees.
And so we have a brand new, it's a great question. We have a brand new funding policy for the Water Pollution Control Authority and utility. And that policy lays out the funding breakdown between the town and the WPCA's fund balance for different classifications of projects. So an example of where we're expanding the collection system to further support economic development. We look at our funding policy, and when we look at that as a 50-50 split, that's how it's written today.
So, but in other words, it's not true that it's self-funded. on every
No,
level.
it is absolutely true. It's a
It is.
self-funded entity. It is a self-funded entity.
not
There-
for all capital improvements.
Well, not for
Partially,
capital, but
yeah.
nothing is self-funded from capital, right?
Well, right, but I think that might be the differentiation. Are we talking operating self-funding versus capital self-funding?
Well, you'll have to.
It may be
expand it.
differentiated that way, because I think you're saying the board might have the ultimate authority on the operating budget.
Right.
Whereas, since the town's on the hook for some large portion of capital, there's some level of authority that the Board of Select Persons has related to capital.
And I wouldn't recommend that the funding policy be codified at all.
Well,
Funding policies for WPCAs are meant to be flexible. They're meant to be reevaluated during the start of each budget cycle, along with the capital plan.
And I would also say that I don't think in the scenario you laid out, it's a Board of Finance.
Well, instead of the board, per fair, yeah.
Right. I'm with Ms. Gore. I mean, I don't want to get into the painful detail of 50-50 split,
no, I
or,
don't.
But, right.
No, I agree. I was just more
But-
trying to think about how to.
Yeah, but to get back to, so this, the sentence that we're debating, and First Selectman's here now, so he can maybe weigh in. Isn't it really true, Bill, that this word town is bothering me? Isn't it really the Department of Public Works that would have, well, not for management. I don't know. I'm struggling with this. The word town is not good. It says, as such, the town assumes decisive responsibility for the management, maintenance, and operation of the system.
Well, this is no longer
It's either-
under Public Works, is that right?
I think, you're hitting on what was the big problem.
Exactly. You're
There
right.
was a period of time where there was a DPW person who understood WPCA and
Right.
he managed, the general manager reported to that person. Then there was a period of time where that didn't happen and, there was a steady deterioration of the system.
Right.
Like in my mind, the town should assume the responsibility, to operate the system, but the state statute, I believe, requires the board to approve, the capital plan. So, but I don't think the board has the capability of managing the operations of the system. So,
I totally agree.
yeah.
I just wanted, I like Commissioner Mick. I'm kidding. McHenry, I'm kidding. I questioned the word town. Who's the town? If somebody opens this up and says, oh, I wonder who has decisive responsibility for the maintenance? Oh, the town. Point to the town for me. Is it the Board of Selectmen? It feels like it is, but I don't know if the other
So in
commissioners.
previous language, when we say the WPC utility, I think we use the word town up in that language as well.
Right.
How would you describe the Department of Public Works? Would you say that the Department of Works, in that case, the Board of Select Persons, assumes decisive responsibility for management, maintenance, and operation of, roads and everything else that is under Department of Public Works?
No, it's very specific. That's a Department of Public Works task.
Right, but that reports up to the Board of Select Persons.
It reports to the first selectman.
First selectman.
DPW reports to the first selectman.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with the town being replaced with Board of Select Person or First Select Person, because then that means that
Yeah, and that's what I
he
was.
says, hey, Bucky, I need you to go maintain the WPCF, because it falls under him. But again, the town,
Okay.
you see what I'm?
Right, I was trying to
Well, you
draw.
would be going to a person in my position, so you
I
wouldn't be
know,
going
but
to
the
the Public
maintenance
Works
of buildings is
Director.
falls under DPW.
No, not these buildings.
Not-
That's what
Okay.
we,
not
that's what we went over
WPC,
before.
utility.
I think, I actually think maybe, this 3 could maybe be deleted and you guys could address this in the other sections, but, that's one comment. The other comment is that, in hearing the discussion, the utility probably should report to the first select person because the manager already reports to the first select person.
Yeah, that's why.
I would agree.
If you want to keep this, but I mean, the utility is already a department and the department head reports to the first selectman. So I don't know that you need to say that again here in 3.
But we do want to state who the WPCA board reports to.
I mean, other boards don't really,
They don't.
No, that's a
report-
good point.
Yeah, they don't
Fine.
report to anyone.
Okay, so let's just delete 3. I'm with you.
Yeah, that second sentence is the problem too, so.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, so I'll just ask the question of Ms. Gore. If we delete that sentence, are you troubled by the fact that we're not specifically saying somebody has responsibility for maintenance, management, and operation?
I think we should deal with that in the duties, and if you guys think.
Perfect.
Michelle and I worked on that.
Perfect.
Language, and I think if you think it needs to be clarified further, we can.
I'm with you. So let's remove it and then you guys, I read through it quickly today, but not in enough detail to. So, okay, let's move on to B.
Okay, so we're talking about who actually makes up each one of these organizations. So when we look at the utility, again, we're looking at it's the facility, it's the treatment facility itself, as well as the sewer department. I think we had already jumped ahead to this language.
Yep.
We were just talking-
apologies on that part.
Forgive.
I was getting deja vu here. But this is the area where I was recalling that we also use the word the town, make the reference to the
Right.
town here.
Yep.
Oh,
The town shall be responsible for the employment of the utility personnel.
And so we're reliant, so as a department, as any other department of the town, we're reliant upon the Human Resources Department for the support and recruitment and hiring of personnel and dealing with personnel matters.
say human resources instead of
And
town?
also with payroll. And so we're not operating
Yeah,
independently of the town.
and should we be pointing this back to 9.1B?
Actually, we should have.
We have to point it back.
You're right, on the whole general manager one, we should
I mean,
have.
there's a section on the powers of the utility that deals with hiring, so we can,
But I mean, 9.1B says you gotta have a job description.
yeah.
Does the hiring section, is that a better place for that?
I think it would go in B1 is my point.
Mm.
You don't think it should go?
No, it could go in the power section.
That's fine, we can defer to then. But I guess the question is, the town shall be responsible for employment. You're saying strike that?
No.
Oh, so the town shall be responsible for employment of the utilities personnel.
My point was, should it be the human resources department or whatever? You know, very more specific versus,
Is that-
you didn't like the town before.
Well, yeah, I don't like it here either because it says things like this is the hiring and fixing of compensation.
But I think the distinction that's being drawn here is whether they're employees of the authority
Uh-huh.
or the town. And so that's why it's drawn so that it's clear that they're town employees, which is the current practice.
Right. And they are.
For me, the reference to the town there makes some sense, unlike in the prior thing we were talking about.
It's better than the prior thing, I give you,
Yeah, I
I'll
think
say that.
the prior one didn't work, I agree. I think this actually does work.
Okay.
So would it be crazy to just say, the people we listed above are town employees? Would it be stupid to say something just that simple? Rather than shall be responsible for employment? Because I think if we say, if all employees of the, I'm making this up, it's all employees of the utility, all employees of the utility are town employees. Then there's an automatic tie to HR, then there's an automatic tie to, I mean,
Got it?
everything, I think, right?
Mhm.
What do you think about that, Michelle?
So it's great to get your fresh perspective on it. And, again, just so that there is clarity interpretation in the future, once this language is adopted.
I don't
Is that
want.
changing anything versus today?
Exactly, right.
That isn't. We are currently all town employees, everyone who works in operations for water pollution control.
Okay, so
Excellent.
that's the change.
Excellent.
Yeah, so the change I made is all employees of the utility shall be town employees.
Excellent. I like it. WPCA board. Yeah, it is still the WPCA board, yep.
Yep, it is. And so there were some minor modifications made here. We left the current number of total voting members of the board, but we're actually identifying that one of the voting members must be the town engineer, so an employee of the town or somebody appointed and deemed qualified by the town engineer to fill that part. This is really important because our capital projects are engineering department reliant. So we rely on our engineers within the town to manage those projects for us. We don't currently have any requirement for an engineer to be a commission member. And, it tossed us back and forth with our two commission chairs. Our chairman, Matt Manchese, is an engineer by profession. And trying to figure out, well, do we require in the charter that one of our volunteer commissioners be an engineer? But this seemed, once I talked with them about it, I talked with Bucky about it, and, our joint decision was it should really be a town employee and someone from the engineering department filling that role as a board member.
We have had multiple discussions about the town engineer here, and I don't think you have to convince anybody at this table how important the town engineer is. So I think that's a great addition. And as long as, my only comment is, as long as the other 6 non-paid volunteers are okay with a paid person sitting on the board, I mean, I think it's a great addition.
Can I ask Bill a question? Or
Please.
isn't there an issue about electors voting on commissions or not electors or?
Yeah, so I was actually just thinking about that. There is a provision on that in the charter that I think addresses that. And there are other WPCAs that have town employees serving on them, like Bridgeport does that, for example.
And there
It's
are,
a great idea to have him on it. I don't know if it violates.
Yeah, that's a good question.
there are boards where people are not appointed, but they are on by default, of their position, like CFO.
So there's
Right.
I'm trying to find that
pension board,
section.
And they're not necessarily an elect.
There is a section.
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
charter
yeah.
on
Yeah, that's for elected.
This is elected. There is a section.
While Phil's looking for that, one of the 7 members is a member of the Board of Select Persons. I know that exists today, but is it a voting member or an ex officio member?
That's a voting member of the commission.
Today, it's a voting member.
That piece has not been changed.
Okay, got it. And then one minor point, but I think if it stays like this, which seems great, and this passes, don't we need a transition plan to essentially get rid of one of the, since you added an engineer, the town engineer, that's essentially bumping one of the
Yeah.
volunteers.
Oh, my God.
So I think we need a transition plan in the charter, right? To go from essentially 6 volunteers to 5 volunteers?
Well, let's see, so when would you appoint the next round of I'm trying to not do that.
Well, I hear you.
So if there's a member whose term is up in November, coincident with us doing this, it would be easy, but I don't know if that's true or not, right?
Or you could just say to take that role upon the first, expert.
First available, you know.
Right, that could be, but my point there is we should just say how that transitions.
Yeah,
I think that's the right way to do it, say like the
it's a
next
fixed-
vacancy that occurs will be essentially the odd man out in proper legal
Well, we could
language.
say the next vacancy would be filled by the town
Will be
engineer.
filled by the
Okay.
town engineer.
that's a better way to say it.
Out in November.
What's that?
Two due to be retired in November.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Do you want to add that language?
I don't think you need to add it if
If there are 2
I
vacancies.
actually don't think you need to add it.
I was gonna say, if it's,
Actually, what happens is once the seat's vacant, they're not eligible to serve in it.
yeah, that's right.
That would-
Right.
that would work. In terms of the elector requirement.
I was just gonna ask
The
about
section I
that.
was thinking of is 3.2. It deals with minority representation, and you don't count persons who serve on the board by virtue of holding another position or office to minority representation, but that doesn't actually deal with elector.
Oh,
So I think right now, it's a little bit, it could be a little bit vague, because it says that no person is eligible for appointment unless they're an elector. So it's appointed board or commission.
We could say except for this,
except for the WPCA board?
yeah, except for the town engineer who,
Well,
on the
And
W.
we've got a CFO on the pension board, and they aren't necessarily, and they're a voting member.
I know.
We are a voting member. Yeah.
But they're not, I think the distinction is they're not appointed.
They're not appointed,
They
they're
hold the
appointed
position by virtue of their.
Mm.
So we could say that here, that this provision does not apply to the extent the member of the board or commission holds their seat by virtue of.
Mm-hmm.
Is the current town engineer an elector?
No.
No, he's not.
It's,
Right.
No.
Wasn't he?
Trumbull?
Right.
I think so. I
So
thought so.
he could appoint someone, another qualified staff person appointed by the town engineer. So if he doesn't sit on the board directly, he can appoint somebody from the town engineer who is an elector to sit on the board.
Yeah, but what if there's nobody in the department that's an
I'm
elector?
not sure.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my question. That was my next question. Okay, so that doesn't work.
And if it's already happening on the pension board, then some kind of general thing like that, that by virtue of their position, they're not really being appointed or something. Maybe should go in here.
So do we have to define the town engineer having that?
Oh, back in the town engineer section?
I don't know, do we?
No, I don't think so.
We didn't think we did another meeting, huh?
I thought we did.
I know we did. I know you did.
No, I didn't, but clearly I was wrong. Let's just make that clear.
What if you had said in paragraph A, after that second sentence, that prohibits a town employee who's not an elector to be appointed to a board or commission? Can you add an exception there? An exception that just says it, and maybe it's not carved out specifically for WPCA or any other commission or board, but accepted as allowed by this charter, or some more general language to that effect.
What section are you referring to?
31A.
Right where you are,
Oh,
3.1A,
sorry
at the end of that second sentence.
So we don't say anything about the chief fiscal officer and the pension.
And in some ways, that's, I think, Phil, that same carve-out almost has to go to C, doesn't it? The single office?
No,
No, because
No?
it's appointed.
no, because they hold it by virtue of holding the position.
It's including membership on any permanent appointed board or commission.
Yeah, I mean, it's not inconsistent because they hold it because they have the office.
Mhm.
So if they're the
Well,
fiscal.
but it does say or qualified staff member, so they're not holding it off. Well, I guess they are holding it off. It's
Well,
a
they're not-
staff member.
You're talking about the town
They're also
Town engineer.
But there's no, that's not, for, the town engineer is not a charter office for
Right, no,
someone.
I get that.
That's true, right.
Fiscal officer is, but they're serving by virtue of having the role.
Right.
Well, if you're comfortable with that, the carve-out only is required for the elector, not for the single office, then that's fine.
It is.
Does anybody gonna have any problem with so basically we have 6 members and a town engineer, let's just call it.
Well, we have 5 members, board
Five
select
members.
person. and a town
Well,
engineer.
but let me, I'm gonna track to this, believe me. We have 6 members and then we have a town engineer. And now it says no more than 3 of the members appointed shall be registered with the same political party. So the second person's party is fixed, right? Whoever has, well, not necessarily, it could be any party, whoever the first selectman could name a board of select person who is a Republican or a Democrat, right? But is there an issue if you hire the biggest darn Republican as a town engineer and he sits on this board? No? I wouldn't think so either, but I'm just,
Town engineer, he's not a Republican.
he's not a Republican, he's just an employee, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that doesn't count toward, they don't count towards.
Right, got it, okay. The fiscal officer or qualified staff person assigned by the fiscal officer and the WPCA general manager shall serve as ex officio members. That was our other.
I think we could just import the same language to 3.1.
And so there's a real need for someone involved with the town's finance department to hold some type of role with the WPCA Commission.
Agreed.
That is something that's been severely lacking and is much needed. We've been relying on volunteers that may have some expertise in finance, but these are major decisions that we're making on our rates, on our the use of our fund balance and the investment of such, as well as the financial model for the authority and utility.
You do not have to convince me of that.
So on 3(1)(a), I just took the language from the other section 3(2), and added it to a parenthetical. Except this shall not apply to persons required to serve on a particular board or commission by virtue of holding another position or office in this way. That's the other language that we use.
That's right, exactly. Yep.
So I
That's
think
good.
that makes it consistent.
Great.
Michelle, how would you get a financial person?
Yeah.
You
that's
mean
fine.
like put somebody on the board who's the chief fiscal officer also, or?
So we have, that's how we, what the
Oh.
modified language, how the modified language reads. And I think someone was just reading that language, and if we could scroll back to that section
Yeah.
in 10.12.
Yeah, my question on that language, Commissioner Wackerman, is it says that the fiscal officer or a qualified staff person. Oh, okay, sorry. I was gonna say, could somebody call me up and say, hey, will you go sit on the WPCA for me on the fiscal officer? It has to be a staff member, so that makes more sense.
And so we're informally relying upon
Yeah, I
staff
know.
of our finance department to assist us with our financial planning. So this is already happening, but this is just defining that clearly in the charter.
I think this is a wonderful addition.
And then
So,
it makes sense for the general manager to, hold that ex officio status with the commission. I will say it could be very awkward being the general manager of the utility and attending our monthly commission meetings and special commission meetings and hearings and not having really any defined role with that board.
Get the better seat. See, you learned something.
Right.
I was just looking at 1013 today. I thought it said that the Department of Public Works Director had to be an ex officio member, but maybe that was some other language I'm thinking about.
On the WPTA?
Yeah.
No, the fiscal officer is identified as being a non-voting member currently.
Well, we kind of addressed that with the town
We
engineer.
talked about it with
Well, we have the town engineer who reports to the,
yeah, right, yep, okay. All right, I'm good. How about we move to powers and duties? Now, I'm just gonna make a general statement before you go over powers and duties. This feels like a lot of detail that we don't need in the charter. Manage billing and fee collection services, provide education, respond to system failures, so
So this is responding to the commission's ask that I heard during the last meeting that addressed WPCA. And so I heard one of the asks being clearly defined powers and duties of the Water Pollution Control Authority. And each piece of the Water Pollution Control Authority. I will
sorry,
say
who
that
asked
when
for
I
that?
look at other town charters, they are not written in this level of detail.
Sorry, who asked for the specific details?
That was my understanding from when I listened into the April 4th meeting.
Sounds like something we might say.
We're not denying it.
You are not denying it, right? I'm not calling you a liar, that's for sure.
No, we're not even getting close.
We are ready, so maybe if we scroll down to the board's lists of power and duties first, because many of these powers and duties were carried over from the existing charter. And
Yeah,
then
you know
were
what? That's a
added
good idea.
onto. Yeah, and then you'll see where the utility mirrors many of these
And where is that? That's
That's
WPCA utility.
3.
03.
Actually, no, wait, maybe that's misnumbered. It's supposed to be 2.
It's supposed to be,
Two.
it's supposed to be D, no? I mean.
No, it's under
C2.
C2.
Oh, because D is deleted. Okay, so C1 is the powers and duties of WPCA utility. C2 are the powers and duties of the WPCA board.
Correct.
And that's a lot too.
But that's
Right, and so if you see, that it's an extensive list in our current town charter.
Is there anything wrong with just relying on 10.12A1 to define the powers and duties or the responsibilities? Utility
So if
shall
we think of our example with the digester failure,
Right.
and a lot of the questions that were unanswered, we just need the assurance that this language is clear enough and strong enough.
Okay, all right, so we're sensitive to your sensitivity.
So the existing charter says the powers and duties of the Water Pollution Control Authority, and there are six things. Now we have 12 things. Now, I'm all about G, about the capital improvement plan, so that's a good add, but, I don't know. It's a general statement for the commissioners.
I mean, so the thing is, some of those duties were
Yeah.
set forth in an earlier section on what they're supposed to do. So, like B in the current charter, organization of personnel, it identifies their ability to make rules and bylaws and keep a record of proceedings. So, those are now under powers and duties. So that section just has been reorganized. And the other change Michelle made was to make, separate stormwater drainage from the section on, to make it clear that there's sanitary sewer connections and then, stormwater drainage. There's a separate one power for that. Just make it clear.
Wow. That's very specific too.
Are there any new, like expansive powers in here? Like in a way of, like initially when I was reading, like, oh, you can order anyone to disconnect, or like, but then I go, oh, that kind of already exists there in a way.
Yeah, and so none of this is new. It's just formalizing what these powers and duties are.
See, this is where I struggle, under WPCA board. First thing it says, your job is to plan, lay out, acquire, construct, reconstruct, equip, repair, maintain, supervise, manage, and operate a sewer system. There's no way the WPCA board does, I don't know if they do any of that.
So that's how our
Because we
current
just-
charter reads. Yep, that's how our current charter reads.
Yeah.
No, I get it,
Yeah.
but we're gonna have a new charter here pretty soon. So we want it, and we want it to be more reflective of what is really happening today. So
But
don't feel,
but that's what 2 does, the 2 whatever paragraph where it defines.
And it does, and they are setting the strategic plan to
Oh.
for the utility to follow through on.
so if you had to rattle off the top of your head right now, without looking at this document, what does the WPCA board do? I can rattle off what I think they do, but yours is a lot more important than mine. You're cheating, I can see you looking.
Sorry,
or
I'm
the
sorry, I don't know
street
who you're directing the question to. If you're
Oh, I'm
directing the
talking to,
question
yes,
to
Ms.
me,
Dorr.
yeah, if you're directing the question to me, I'm happy to answer. And so the WPCA Board of Commissioners, they're developing our strategic plan.
Yep.
They're developing our policies,
Yep.
our rules, our regulations. They are making decisions on connections, requests to connect to our collection system. They are approving and assisting with the development of our capital and financial plans, as well as our budget.
They're setting the rates.
Correct? They are setting.
That's the most
rates. That's when
important
it comes
thing,
to our
right?
Financial, yep, our financial plan.
I love that list you just rattled off. I have no problem, with the possible exception of connections, because I think that's getting a little more detailed. I mean, I think what I'd like to see is a document that says, listen, the utility is really the action plan guys, right?
Well,
People.
that's what we're doing here. Yep, and so that's what
Yeah,
we're doing
but
here.
but I'm afraid under C2, there's a lot of stuff that the board just doesn't do.
They do these things, and so we don't independently, utility doesn't independently, we cannot independently order, order people to do certain things. We can't, we have to go through the public process. And maybe I'll defer to Phil for some of the assistance when it comes to the statutory obligations of a WPCA. But there's certain things in state statutes that WPCAs, are responsible for.
But you really think the current WPCA lays out sewer systems?
They don't physically lay out the sewer system, so maybe.
But that's what it says. It says right here, you gotta lay out and operate a sewer system. And they don't. Listen, I love the list you gave. I think it's strategic. They set a budget, they set the rates. They should be involved in a capital planning process and the other three things you mentioned. I love that list.
Just one.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
So-
in any way that you see that the list can be shortened, for sure, shorten the list. And when we look at C1, when it talks about the WPCA, the Water Pollution Control Utility, the first thing on the list, it mirrors A under the board. And so we're operating and maintaining the system through planning, laying out, acquiring, constructing, reconstructing, equipping.
I get no problem with that.
Et cetera, et cetera. And so maybe we leave it at that and we nix C2A under the WPCA board, and just knowing that certain items here, we will be going to the board to decide. But not every item.
I would just say
Correct
two
in
key
that.
points here.
Yeah, go ahead,
So,
Commissioner Tresham.
On section 2, the lead in says the board through the utility shall have the power to. So essentially, it is speaking to the fact that it's more of the oversight in a way, and the utility is a part of the doing the work. The second point is the pragmatic point. We have to approve in a red line today.
Yeah.
Is any of this wrong? I agree it's too detailed, but is it wrong? If it's not wrong.
I think A is wrong.
Get it done.
I think A's wrong.
I have one other comment that I just want to mention before I don't
Okay.
forget it. So in 1012 A2 on the board, it says the WPCA will approve an annual operating budget. I think the intent there is that refers to, well, I guess, Michelle, what is the operating budget? What does it consist of? It consists of the utility?
It's our revenue and our expenditures for the utility.
Does it get?
With all of our revenue and all of our expenditures.
The balance sheet.
For utility.
Right, so I think we should say it for the utility. Because, so that it's clear that they are funding the utility, because I'm not sure that that's otherwise stated.
What are you what number are you looking at? 12-1?
A2.
12-8-2. The WPCA board, oh, okay.
Last sentence.
Shall set, the W will approve an annual operating budget for the WPC.
For the utility.
Yep.
Well, because is it clear that they're paying for the utility?
So I don't know if that's necessarily accurate, because our revenue does fund, it goes to our fund balance. So I don't know if we want to be that specific.
Well, you guys are all over the place. You're so specific. You're telling me that you're telling
So
me
again, so when we
that
look
the
at
Water
it-
Pollution Control Authority is going to acquire by purchase, condemnation, or otherwise any real property or interest in real property which it shall determine to be necessary in connecting the sewer system. Are you kidding? Never.
Yeah, but no, but they need
They
to.
do, though.
They do.
They
Why-
have done that.
That one I
They
agree.
do that.
Yeah,
We
I
want a
kind of
town
agree
employee
with-
Just to be able to say, I'm gonna go condemn that property without like some kind of like board or public.
This is a public process, remember? And so
Yeah.
this is not something that the utility can just decide it's going to do independently.
Okay.
Bill has a hand.
I just have a question.
Go ahead.
Maybe for Phil. Is it easier just to say that WPCA shall have the board shall have the powers and duties conferred upon it by state statute, section 7-247?
We have that, but we're trying to, that's in here.
Okay.
But we also are trying to draw the distinction between what they do and what the utility does.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Wackerman.
I wanted to, first, I do agree with Commissioner Treshuk about the timing. Like, we do have very tight timing to approve this, and it doesn't seem like anything's wrong. And I also am wondering if, given the problems we've had, especially with the digester and stuff, that maybe over specifying things is not the worst thing in the world when we're trying to kind of change the way this is all done. Maybe it's not harmful. And it is already, we have a lot of things in here that we've talked about how they could be in ordinances or other things, but it is what it is. I'm not sure it's really harmful to have this long of a thing.
Okay, thank you for that.
My 2 cents.
I'm willing to drop all this if the first selectman will make a pledge to me that during his review process, he and the Board of Selectmen really take a hard look at this, because I'm gonna go on record, it's way too much detail that I don't think belongs in the charter. I understand the whole digester thing. I lived through it as a Board of Finance guy, believe me, and it was frustrating as hell. We couldn't point a finger at anybody. So I'm there. I think this is, again, it's a little much, but I'm willing to drop it. This isn't my show by myself. I appreciate that. Prue?
Make a motion.
Prue? Did you hear that, Prue?
Yes, sorry.
Speak up, Bill Gerber. No.
Hello?
Take a hard look at this, Prue.
Okay, thank you.
I'm assigning it to you, Prue.
Okay. I'm ready to make a motion to accept section 10.12 as amended by all of the comments that were just, I don't want to go through everything here, but as amended by the town attorney in his draft document. Is that kosher? I don't know, right?
It is.
Second.
Okay. We can still discuss. So is there
You guys
further
wanna-
discussion?
You guys want to look through it one more time before you vote?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't get, my apologies, commissioners, I didn't mean to take over the whole conversation, but, yeah, let's
Just maybe read it.
step through, right.
It's changed on the screen.
Yeah, we can read it up there, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a wonderful description. I mean, number 2 is a wonderful description, Kai. So I mean, this was not in the charter before, and I don't have any problem with it, but this basically says, general manager can go out and hire anybody she is inclined to hire if she thinks she needs to run the plant. And I guess because it's a self-fulfilling budget, she,
No,
no?
it doesn't say that.
And general manager and the town.
So that
So
would
there's a
be-
partnership there.
Ultimately, when I present the budget every year, I do have to get the town's, I need to get approval to create new positions.
But, yeah, no, I'm aware, but it says here, the utility shall be staffed by a general manager, WPCF superintendent, sewer department supervisor, and as many persons as the general manager Oh, and the town.
And the
There's
town.
that town guy again. And the town determined to be, fine, got it.
I think the only new thing there is we talked earlier, the sewer department supervisor, that role doesn't exist. Apparently will be now created, but funded within this operating budget.
Perfect, got it. Yep.
So I did not, just going back to 2, I did not add, I left operating budget alone. I didn't add any.
I think that's right.
All right,
I think that's good.
as long as you guys like that.
The members appointed by the Board of Select Persons shall have a term of 4 years, which shall be staggered so that no more than 2 fiscal officer or a qualified shall serve as ex officio. Okay.
And then we have the laundry list of.
In accordance with, so, you know. Okay.
Yeah, we don't think we
Scroll.
change any of these. These are all what we've been looking at.
That's what we got, right?
Minutes
This,
billing.
this has not changed. I just want to make sure you guys are comfortable approving it.
Yeah.
Well, this is all new. The utility part is all new, right?
It's,
Well, I know, but it's done, it's in the.
Yeah.
you've seen it before. It's the draft that came
Right,
earlier.
yep. Does the utility really manage the billing and fee collection?
We do.
Okay.
We work in coordination with the town's tax collector.
Okay.
I think there's just some renumbering or relettering there of the list that needs to occur.
Report 2 system failures, including but not coordinate with state, local.
Let me see. Sorry, it's HI.
There's no G.
No G.
There's no G, yeah,
Yep.
that's right.
When stuff changes, will it just automatically do that for you?
No,
Not how it
because they're
was-
not bullets.
The charter was, that we had to work off of this one.
Oh,
These are fake, these are fake outlines.
oh, God. It'll drive me nutty.
Perform inspection, implement.
They need a legal intern just to like convert this into like real word.
I was saying something to Phil the other day, I'm like, why can't you insert a table of contents? He's like, how do you do that? I mean, it's,
No, we-
well, it has to be really in Word.
We
and-
we had somebody do it and it screwed up all the formatting in the document. Because you have to
So they-
reformat the whole
so
thing.
they- Yeah, they're there. Okay. Maintain maps, okay, perform all actions, okay.
Okay, so now this is the utility section.
In accordance, the WPCA board through the
The
utility,
board section, sorry.
through the utility. So that means the board tells the utility to do something. Shall have the power to. Got it. Oh, okay.
That was my point on.
No, I'm tracking, yeah.
I mean, it's still too detailed, but
So if the
It's saying
board,
they're not
if the
doing it.
board says, you're the general manager, go lay out a
Lay this thing out,
sewer
yeah.
thing, they gotta go, okay. Okay, I'm there, got it.
Okay.
Yep. Love it. No more digester problems.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Please, of course.
The,
Commissioner McHenry.
Phil, just the language of the WPCA board through the utility. I'm hearing someone say that means they tell the utility to do it. Is that really the operation of that language, or does the operation of that language say through the utility, they derive the power to do it?
Oh,
mean,
that's a big difference.
I don't read that. I'm not a wordsmith in a sense of, statutory structure, but
Well, the powers are different.
yeah.
So I read it to mean that they exercise these powers through the utility, not that they're,
Okay.
Could we say
Right from the
executed
utility.
through the utility?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I think your interpretation, there's an assumption built into the.
I think you're right, yeah.
Michelle, is
Yeah, right.
that, Michelle, is that an improvement executed through the utility?
I
No, that's
would agree with
100%,
that.
there was a,
That's good, Chris. Remove the ambiguity.
I never learned to read statutes.
That was good, yeah.
And then this is existing language except for, so the word sewage system is taken out because it's just a system.
Yeah.
So such that we don't differentiate between sewage and what was the other word? Clean water?
Drainage or something, maybe?
Stormwater?
Stormwater. Got it. So the system's both, right, Ms. Gore?
The system is the sewerage system, and I believe we defined that earlier.
Okay. All right, no need to go backwards for me. Manage billing and fees. I mean,
You see, this is all language that, we haven't touched this tonight. But
yeah. I mean, we say manage and billing fee collection system twice, but it's fine. We say the utility does it, then we say that the board tells the utility to do it. But again,
Whenever you have first select person's commitment.
I think Bill should just run the whole freaking thing. Okay, there's a motion and a second on the table to accept to accept this section as amended by our comments and per the input that our town attorney is currently sharing with us on the table. Is there any further discussion? Okay, let's vote. All in favor of accepting the new updates, say aye.
Aye.
500 approved. Ms. Gore, do we have anything else in the document that we need to look at?
No, this is all.
Yeah, that was all for Michelle.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
I thank you for this tremendous opportunity to be able to make recommendations on behalf of WPCA to improve the town charter in its next revision.
Wonderful. I appreciate your inputs. Very well done.
The other item you wanted us to look at,
Well, I was going to take us right to section 5.3,
okay.
and I was going to ask my friend Commissioner Wackerman to explain her email because it did not make any sense to me.
Oh, okay.
This is
Yeah,
the,
so as we were, I think, kind of guessing last night, the town now has liability insurance that covers all
Right.
employees for wrongdoing, which would include for wrongdoing, like stealing money, which we were discussing might have been the reason for the bond.
the surety bond, right? Yeah.
Right. So, so really the surety bonds are kind of antiquated, and there's now insurance that would cover them, and so they're not required anymore, and I gather not done. Bill, it looked like you might have been looped into this discussion today.
Yes,
Am I saying it accurately?
absolutely, 100%. Yeah,
Okay.
we don't issue these bonds, or I think it's an old term, but we have comprehensive insurance coverage.
So with the recommendation of the first selectman through an email, I'll make a motion to remove the existing section 5.3, paragraph 5.3 called official bonds from the charter. Do I have a second?
A second. Okay.
Okay, oh, Commissioner Wackerman, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
500 approved.
So I called Helen DeFonso, who's in treasurer, to ask about our discussion last night, and she said.
About what
The
discussion?
treasurer, and at the chief fiscal officer could fill that role, and she said that there's something, they had looked into it the last time, and there's something where, that she couldn't remember, and I looked in the charter, in the statutes, and I couldn't find it either, but she still had to be it, but she wrote a memo giving all her duties except signing for the bonds over to the chief fiscal officer. And she said, ask the town attorney. So I looked up chapter 94, which is the treasurer in the statutes, and it doesn't say the fiscal officer can't be the treasurer as far as I could read it.
No, our charter says they can be.
We changed it to that.
No,
No, it
the existing charter says,
So I don't know what.
That was
what
that's the
Helen was
existing
talking
charter.
about.
the existing charter
Maybe
says.
she was talking about, I don't know what she's
Because of the
talking about.
charter? Maybe, I don't know. because when she was treasurer, it was before there was charter revision, maybe that was it. Or existing charter, I don't know. She said that when they tried to do it in 22. Not to say that.
Well, we don't have any recommendation
We
to
didn't touch
change
right?
it.
I mean, you
No,
touch
we
it.
didn't.
Yeah.
9.6 is, we had a discussion last night, but it ended when we said, oh, look at this. The chief fiscal officer may also serve as town treasurer, and that kind of
Yeah.
put an end to the discussion. In existing 9.6, and I'll look
You
at,
don't have to appoint a treasurer. We can just say that chief fiscal officer could be the treasurer.
This is the
But we
only.
do have a treasurer.
These are the only changes that you guys made to
So
this.
it's not optional.
Why do we have a treasurer?
Because it's in the charter, and,
But we don't have to have a treasurer.
well, the chief
No, you have
fiscal
to have a-
officer would be the treasurer.
No, you have to have a treasurer, it just
Still have
can't
that
be the
title.
CFO as well.
He would have a joint, or he or she would have.
Dual role.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You don't have to have a separate treasurer.
You don't have to, from what I understand. Last charter revision, there was discussion about getting rid of the treasurer in the charter altogether. And from what I recall, they got to a point and said, we're running out of time.
Okay.
It's not that big a
Sounds
deal,
familiar.
and we don't know what the implications are, so let's just not deal with it. you
Okay.
know?
Well, we did look at the 2022 revision as a reference document, it was still in there, so.
Yeah, they kept it in ultimately because.
I didn't know why, but-
They had too much other stuff to do, and they were worried about the potential ramifications of getting rid of it. And it is true for the bond, the treasurer signs off on bond issues. And we happen to have a treasurer right now who is a pretty high-level finance guy, so,
Perfect. I had a note on page 36 under chief of police
Yes.
to update on 424. Was that
So
that was
the, you had discussion about that last night,
Mm-hmm.
so, part of the question was on who removes, and so,
oh, right.
and whether the first select person could have a role in removal. And also whether they had to have a role, or you could take out a role of,
Just defer to the commission, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've not been able to, in a day, not able to thoroughly vet that issue. So our suggestion was to leave it basically unchanged.
Which says the chief of police may be removed for cause by the police commission and shall serve until retirement. Okay.
And, but also leave the appointment provision the way it was before.
Agree. So the first select person can appoint, but the way it's written right now, the first select person doesn't have a vote in the removal.
Correct.
Well, the first select person has to provide input, right, on the
Not on
appointment?
removal.
On the
No,
appointment.
on the appointment.
Yeah, but it doesn't actually appoint.
Yeah. No, good point. Right. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. So shall be appointed by the police commission with the approval of the first select person. Right, got it. Thank you. That's a good clarification. We went through that.
I have to jump on a call. Am I going to have a chance to thank you all officially?
Sure, we'll be done in like 3 hours. Come on back.
Okay, I will, I'll come back, but otherwise, we are gonna have more
Oh.
meetings, right, after it comes to, so, but thank
They
you.
also have to, so that they have their public meeting.
Are you coming to our public meeting or do you not want
Yeah,
to?
I'll come to
The public hearing next week, but then they will meet again to
right,
discuss input from the public hearing, and they have an opportunity to make additional changes then. if there's some-
Yeah, so
Thank you all.
5-1, and it was in the newsletter if you, I was gonna show you guys that thing.
Yeah, I saw that came out.
5-1 and 5-8 we'll have in our meetings.
thank you, Eric.
Hold on. There's a couple of changes. So on page 56, my friend, Ms. DeMarco, made me, there was, at the top of the page, where it says acceptance and use of private donations, that the Department of Human and Social is missing.
Which,
Sorry, it's section 10, it's now renumbered 1015. Under I guess it's under, she's
C2.
at the Ethics Commission.
Yes,
Sorry, 1014, under Ethics Commission.
ethics.
Department of Human and Social Services?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So C2, at the top of the page, it should say and social.
Yep, I got
She
it.
had one other thing in, shoot. It was in section 9. There was another.
You got C2, right?
Yes, I think that's that.
Oh, on page 31, under section 9.10, B3, coordinate the work of the Department of Human and Social.
Oh, good.
That's that. Thank you, Ms. DeMarco. I think that is all I have. Yep, that says, yep, I went through everything we talked about last night and added has been changed correctly as far as I can tell. Shall we vote the document forward and then we can talk about the responses? Okay. I make a motion to move.
Do you want, hold on, I'm sorry.
Sure.
But you do have, sorry, from the public, do you want to have any public comment?
Oh, would you, yes, okay, you have public comment before we move it forward? Good point.
I have nothing to say.
Oh, no, thank you, okay.
Disappointing, huh?
I just didn't want to vote and then you say, hey, guys, you forgot this.
When we catch someone.
I hope that's a good thing, Judy.
Sorry, Chris, I just.
No, dude, that's a very good point. I'll make a motion to move the Charter Revision Commission updated charter as amended by the town attorney in electronic form. Approve that for release on the website for public consumption before our public meeting.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Treshik. Is there any further discussion?
A question, when we put it on the website, are we releasing a red line and a red line that doesn't show the revisions? Or doesn't,
Version?
a clean version essentially?
Okay, we can. Do you guys want that?
That's a good idea.
Sure, if you don't mind.
Makes it easier to read.
Yeah.
Could the, and could the name of the document be, actually, what I would like the document to be called, Charter Revision Commission Recommendation 4/24/25. And then, if we amend it again, then it's, and then after that, now there's a document on there today, I would remove that, but from now on, I would not. I would just revise that document with the date. Any further comments? Commissioner Wackerman, you good?
I'm good.
All right. All in favor? Aye. 500 approved. Thank you very much. Okay. Agenda item 7, discussion on open CRC topics. So if you don't have a copy or electronic version, I sent today 2 documents. One is called, I'll start with the town clerk because it's a lot easier. CRC responses to town clerk recommendations. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. This is in response to the comments last night that we should have, for the town meeting, have responses to the town clerk recommendations and the Board of Selectmen recommendations, right? And let me share that. Yes. Okay. There it is. I didn't go through the painful detail of going through and listing the whole thing. Now, 2.3, let me also bring up what our town clerk said to us. And because 2.3, I didn't think I had a good answer. Town clerk. So, town clerk, the terms of office shall commence wait a minute. This is what we talked about last night.
Right.
So did we settle on that? Are we good? And you know something? Shoot, we move this forward. We were debating the whole and qualified or as or and sworn
We missed it
in?
last night.
Okay, so we voted on the fact that that whole sentence got deleted. So the
Correct.
version that you sent last night in 2.3, that's in here is corrected.
Yeah, because it adds the point of the year in which they were elected, and then removes the whole questionable piece. So it's, because we're defining the beginning of the term here, and because somewhere else, it's defined the length of the term. The full term is defined.
Got it. So, I will go back to the document.
And I would argue that, kind of like how you described 4.3D, like, we accepted the basic premise, we did revise it slightly.
Yep, that's exactly where I was going. We accepted the basic premise of the town clerk and revised to read, oh, shoot. I don't have the actual document open, hold on.
Your document?
No, yeah. No, the document that Bill provided us that we've been talking about tonight. Just open it up real quick.
Don't read that fast.
Yeah, I hope you don't.
Page 6, I think. Oh, no. Not it. Page 7. That helps.
Yep, I'm there. And I don't want it to be read. Okay. Thank you for that. So, that's basically the gist of it. So, on 2.6, the town clerk asked us to this is to notify each member of the meeting less than 3 days, and our response is, oops. CRC accepted verbatim the recommendations of the town clerk to notify each member of the district. Under meetings, CRC accepted the basic premise of the town clerk and revised to read, the notice shall be posted on the town's website. So if it wasn't verbatim, I requoted it. Ordinances, this is I emailed Phil about this today. Betsy wanted the newspaper to be removed. The CRC was advised the removal of quote, a newspaper of having a general circulation in the town was not allowed because of existing state statute.
We did change
We did change
paragraph 4.5,
Right.
so you could take that change in.
That was the discussion around that we've given the authority to change it if the state law changes.
Comma, and if otherwise required by general statutes. and district, blah, 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 blah. Added it.
Right.
So we've given her what she wants if it's legal.
Statute, though, I mean.
But it's not legal yet.
Bear with me. Remember I told you I was doing this at my lunch with a sandwich in my hand? We accepted the basic premise of the town plan revised to read,
We need a seventh inning stretch.
on the town's website and if otherwise required by it. Okay. And then the last was the CRC accepted verbatim the recommendation of the town clerk to remove the requirement of at least 10 meetings a year. Any issues with those responses? Are they accurate?
I think they're accurate.
Yeah, I was just going back and checking. The 10 meetings, plus references. Yep.
Okay, if you don't mind, Phil, I'll email you these two documents when we're done, and you can maybe submit them on the web, in the same place when the upload the documents complete.
Well, I'll email them to Jen.
Yeah, perfect, okay. So,
And they'll get posted then? So they'll get posted for the public then?
I was gonna say, we'll put them right next to the document. I think that was kind of what Justin was getting at not last night, right?
Jason, yeah.
Jason, sorry, Justin, sorry. Okay. Okay, so I make a motion that we accept the CRC responses as shown on the screen
To the town clerk.
to the town clerk.
Second.
Commissioner Tressick seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5-0-0. Thank you very much. And then the other one.
The vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, geez, you can hear it that clear, huh?
Yeah.
Sent it to myself here, there it is. Okay. The Board of Selectmen recommendations are a little longer, but I think we can get through it. Sorry? Subject matter expert. If you don't know what it means, I will spell it out.
I didn't know what it meant.
You did? Did not?
No.
Okay.
I kept looking for a reference. to
I
it.
know.
I will,
Say once it would have.
I am, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. Subject?
Can you post these?
We are.
Yes, ma'am. They're gonna be up on the website with the charter provision.
All set.
Okay, thank you for that. So the first one was, the first selectman asked us to please use the 2022 version. My response, and again, please just jump in and correct me if you guys don't like any of the words I use. The CRC considered using the prior 2022 CRC version, but agreed that the most effective path was to use the current charter as our baseline and use the 2022 version as a reference document for ideas and wording. That's a little clunky at the end, but if you guys have better words, please let me know.
Great.
Okay. The second was terms of office. Bill asked us to consider having everyone at a 4-year term. Now, help me if I'm wrong here. I thought the only change, Phil, would have been the Board of Finance going to 4 years, right? He was not including constables and all that other stuff when he said that. Or was it?
I think it was Board of Finance.
Yeah, that's so. So in that vein, I said the CRC considered reducing the Board of Finance term to 4 years, but with Board of Finance leadership input, voted against making this change in the charter revision.
Also, I think the state statute recommends 6 years.
Oh, it does?
I remember it from 25 years ago.
Mr. Brown has submitted testimony
We were
that
gonna
it's
change the
it's
term.
required to be 6. I didn't independently confirm that, but.
We don't need a Board of Finance, is what he said, didn't he?
I think that's the only board that he thinks we need.
Some town, no, yeah, I don't think it is required. Some towns, the Board of Finance functions held by the legislative body.
More of if we choose to keep it, then it's 6. But
Let me also not have any acronyms, so I'll put Board of Finance, find it once. Okay, CRC recommended reducing the Board of Finance term to 4 years, but with Board of Finance leadership input, voted against making this change in the charter revision. Additionally, state statute recommends a 6-year Board of Finance term. Thank you for that. So the third one was it was a very lengthy recommendation, that, help me if I'm wrong here. I think what Bill was basically getting at, and there was a couple of references, but basically increase our delegation authority from 10,000 to 50,000. So,
This is correct, but I think we also should talk about the length. From a month to a year, that was the other piece.
right. So let me get through these words and then we'll add that. So I put the CRC incorporated almost entirely the 2022 CRC revised wording in paragraph 6.1 C1, increasing the delegation level from 10,000 to 50,000 is recommended. Additionally, thank you, I did not remember that. Additionally, help me with the words, please. The CRC increased, what did we increase?
Term of the contract from 1 month to 1 year.
From 1 month to 1 year. Okay. Additionally, the CRC increased the term of the contract from 1 month to 1 year. I will save that. Qualification and eligibility of town officers. I'm drawing a blank right this second, so let me pull that up.
Next, does the DPW head need to be a professional engineer?
Okay, got it,
Do the town attorney and assistant town attorneys need to be residents or electors?
got it.
And then, I can't remember the specific on the police and fire chief.
I think he said that he preferred they not be an elector.
Yeah, I think that's it.
So I'll look at that real quick, just to be clear. Yeah. Oh, sorry, wrong one.
Yeah, consider reasonable maximum distance requirements instead of the requirement to be elector, which we did, the 35 miles.
For director of public works. So, okay, so I might have to remind you, because I had forgotten about that one. So my response was, the CRC debated and incorporated with subject matter expert assistance all the recommended changes. But that's not true, because we didn't add a PE requirement.
That's, the implication is, what he's asking is the P requirement still necessary?
Oh, so I think, so maybe that's right.
Yeah.
So we did,
Push it to
we
the
recommended,
engineer.
we made recommended changes that addressed everything.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, let's skip over 5 real quick, because we have to talk about that a little bit. Term of officers, term of town officers, so that was, the term of officer is, this is the wholesale deletion of all of the terms, Phil, that didn't have any term associated with it, right? So remember all the terms had like 2, 4 years, and some of them had nothing, and everybody's like, well, what's their term, right?
Yeah. Well, and also, we may, I would argue this one goes hand in hand with the removal without cause and, remains until removed, resigned, retired, thank you. Do we call
Except
out?
except that wasn't a recommendation. He didn't specifically, I
Well,
see
we
what you're
defined
saying.
the term in a way.
Oh, no, you're, no,
Because we
no,
said
that's,
the term.
no, that's
needs no end
absolutely
date,
valid.
Except until they're removed, retired, or
Yep.
resigned.
That's a great point. So what I had put was that we incorporated with SME assistance the intent of all the recommended changes. Additionally, to clarify, I'll just spitball here and you guys can make my
I
words
mean,
better.
in the end, they're asking for, is the term of office clear? It is
Right.
clear now.
Right.
It's indefinite, and we made that clear.
So maybe that's the right words. So we debated and incorporated with SME assistance the intent of all the recommended changes to clarify.
The length of the term of office, right?
Length of the term of office.
That's what they're asking us for.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot better, what I was gonna say. Perfect. The next one was minority representation. This is the supermajority, as I call it. The CRC debated with SME assistance, and no revision to the current charter is recommended. Internal auditor, the CRC debated and incorporated with SME assistance a new reporting structure for the role of internal auditor and additional auditors. That's the exact language in the charter. Assessment system, so this was, there was a Board of Finance, there is language in the current charter that says the Board of Finance has to pick the assessment system. We never did it we voted on it, but we never really picked it in the 16 years I did it. So the CRC deleted the language as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Tree warden. The CRC, now what Bill had asked for was, I wanted his term to be, or their term to be 1 year and turn to 2 years. So I said, the CRC debated and incorporated with SME assistance the language that the tree warden has no term limit as described in Connecticut state statutes. That is accurate, right?
No, so the statute provides a term limit, but you're not required to abide by that term limit, to term length. You
Okay.
can set your own,
So
under home rule.
are there better words or?
So
Oh, it's home rule.
due to home, yeah, because we're only affecting our town, not the whole.
So the language that the tree warden, so we incorporated the language that the tree warden has no term limit through home rule?
Or you could tie it back to terms of office for town officers, right?
Yeah.
Except we told them there's no term limit for him.
And there is no term limit for town officers because they serve,
Oh, at the pleasure of the,
you know,
okay,
it can be removed without cause and.
help me with the words.
Let's see.
CRC debated and incorporated with SME assistance the language that the tree warden has no term limit.
Other than,
Well, that the tree warden serves at the discretion of.
Other than, yep. Other than,
It serves until removal,
Removal.
retirement, resignation.
and
Oh.
serves until the 3 hours.
other than.
Right. 3 hours, that's better. Because we don't know what SME is, we know.
There you go. Gotta be one up on them.
Like limit ourselves.
Sorry, the CRC debated and incorporated the language that the tree warden has no term limit other than, sorry, has no, other than the tree warden serves until,
I can never get all three.
removal.
Oh, yeah.
The other option, you could say like the language that the tree warden can be removed without cause and serves until.
But I would say as with all other officers.
Great ad.
So it doesn't sound like we're singling out the poor tree warden.
Okay, so help me out.
There was a lot of discussion about this.
Yeah. The language that, so the CRC debated and incorporated with SME system, the language that the tree warden has no term limit given,
Well, no,
As with all other
Yeah.
town officers.
that the tree warden, comma, like other town officers, comma,
oops.
can be removed without cause. And serves until 3 hours.
So delete has until
Serves,
tree warden.
can be removed without cause and serves until retirement, removal, or resignation. Beautiful.
You wanna say like all other town officers?
Like, I think
Except for the auditor.
all, it's not technically all, is it? Because there are a couple of town officers,
Yeah, I know it's
like
not. the
most
auditor.
other, I think is accurate.
Yeah, maybe most other, so it sounds.
Section 1013, Water Pollution Control Authority, there was a desperate plea to make that better. In coordination with Ms. Gore and Mr. Marsilio, the CRC incorporated new charter language to all sections referring to the WPCA.
I would just revise Ms. Gore and Mr. Marsilio to SME, like,
Yeah.
be consistent, rather than call them
I
out.
was just gonna say that. Now that we know it, or I know what SME is.
Well, SME assistance, like you've done, other,
Oh, yeah, got it. Yep. In coordination with. Okay, let me do it the right way. CRC debated and incorporated with SME assistance, new charter language to all sections referring to that. Awesome. Town administrator, this is the chief operating officer. The CRC debated and incorporated with SME assistance the new role of chief operating officer under CRC draft paragraph 9.14. Standards of conduct, sorry?
that's correct.
Standard of conduct and ethics. Basically, Bill's comment was, don't forget about ethics. The CRC incorporated new charter language in paragraph 1014. Now, help me with this, Karen, please. That ties the charter to the impending code of ethics policy to be completed by the RTM at a date to be determined.
No.
No?
We have a code.
No,
What it does is it gives the town flexibility to pass an ordinance that'll supersede the standards of conduct in the charter.
right.
Okay. So we incorporated new charter language that allows the town through the ordinance process, is that correct?
Mm-hmm,
Is that what you said?
Yes.
yeah.
Through the ordinance.
Going to town code.
What's that?
Yes.
Will that go to
Process.
town code?
If the RTM enacts an ordinance to do that.
So the CRC incorporated new charter language in paragraph 10 that allows the town through the ordinance process to,
Supersede,
okay,
is that right?
Yes, that's what.
supersede the current code of ethics?
Mm-hmm.
I always spell supersede wrong.
It's with an S, not a C.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
I do too, I don't know why.
Code.
Oh, codes.
Yes, it's a real word.
The CRC incorporated new charter language in paragraph 1014 that allows the town through the ordinance process to supersede the current code of ethics. The other recommendations by the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen were also incorporated. I wonder if I ever defined Board of Selectmen anywhere. I think that is the first time I use it.
You used it in 8.3 assessment system.
Thank you very much. Board of Selectmen still at this point in our lives, right? Board of Selectmen. Oops. Thank you very much. Town seal, the CRC debated and incorporated with SME assistance charter language that would allow for the town seal to be changed by the RTM using an ordinance. It's a little clunky, so if you have a more elegant way of saying it,
Or you could say through the ordinance process like you just did up top.
be changed through the ordinance process. I like it.
Those are your words.
Once I move to the next thing, I forget what I've done. Gender neutral terms, the CRC updated the charter language to using gender neutral terms as recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
Why is gender capitalized?
I don't know, it was capitalized there, so.
Okay, and just that the ordinance is capital in 13, but not capital in 14. So I don't, just want to be consistent.
Okay. Define terms. This is the topic of should the RTM be called a town office? The CRC debated with SMA assistance the charter, the charter topic. Hold on.
Be capital there, capital D, T here.
Sorry, hold on here. CRC debated with, let's make sure the charter paragraph. Define terms. You want me to capitalize that yet? The CRC with legal input determined that the RTM should not be considered a town office. The CRC recommends no charter change, charter language change on this topic. Good. Commissions established by the charter. So this is Bill's comment. He said, you know, some things are defined in the charter, some things are defined in code. So the CRC debated with SME assistance this topic at great length. The CRC determined that the current town charter / town code structure is working sufficiently well today and does not need to be changed. I'm happy to take better words.
I think that's good.
Last one here. Defining the process to set future compensation. The CRC added language for the entire Board of Selectmen, including the first selectman, that memorializes and describes the current process for determining compensation. That's accurate, right? Okay. The last thing I had was advisory bodies. Now, what Bill asked about, I thought this was still an open action. Review and evaluate the terminology and requirements for boards that are purely advisory in nature versus those that vote on resolutions that carry, wait a minute. There is a,
So this is the issue we talked about last night.
yeah, right. Did we?
You guys discussed this and decided to leave it alone?
I mean, where I wouldn't say this, but essentially, like, we finally understood what it was last night. Like, we're not gonna tackle it.
I missed it.
What was bodies that didn't have a budget?
Well,
or-
the issue, the way it came up is there's a kind of narrow exception where you can have somebody serve on only the RTM.
Right.
and An advisory commission, board or commission, or a building committee, and that's because it's in the qualification section of the RTM. So this came up once where the question was, well, what is an advisory body? And, you know, which bodies are advisory? So that was where Bill's comment came from. Maybe you should define what bodies are advisory and what aren't. The problem is a lot of those bodies, none of the advisory bodies are in the charter. The charter bodies actually do have real authority, right? So how do you go about defining it when they're subject to change in the town code and stuff?
Thank you.
Or even through charges, right? I
Right.
mean,
Right.
Board of Selectmen charges, most of them are probably Board of Selectmen charges. Right.
So this is what I put, and again, you know, the good news here is that the Board of Selectmen can say, well, push back and say, we'll figure it out, right? The CRC debated this topic with subject matter existence and took no action.
That's fine.
The truth, right?
Yep.
Save.
So wait, time out. I didn't see anything in the statutes about the Board of Finance terms. So I don't know if that's accurate.
Yeah, I don't think you need to say that.
Fine, I'll take it out.
Yeah. Just say what we decided.
Yeah.
per Judy Ewing. No.
She is our expert.
You had mentioned the state statutes mentioned the Board of Finance having a 6-year term, and Commissioner Hoag says she can't find that.
It was discussed by Eileen Wilcox. She was the attorney for the,
Oh, I remember Eileen, Assistant Town Attorney.
Yeah, she was the assistant town attorney when it changed the Board of Selectmen to 4-year term. And that came up at that meeting.
Huh.
So that was 16
You
years
have a
ago.
much better memory than I do. I can't remember what I did today. Okay, I'm gonna drive this to the next line so it looks a little better. And then I'm gonna make a motion to accept the responses, the CRC responses to the Board of Selectmen recommendation as amended on the document on the screen. Seconded by Commissioner Hoag.
And thank you.
No problem. Happy to do it.
Does that mean most of their concerns will not be discussed when it comes before the Board of Selectmen on May 1st, on May 13th?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
May 13th, you're meeting with the Board of Selectmen.
May 13th is the day we have to deliver the document.
So it sounds like they're gonna be pretty happy if you have dealt with it.
Well, we have to, it's not contractually, it's whatever.
By statute.
By statute, we have to formally respond to what the Board of Selectmen asked us. So we're preemptively, probably doing it a little early.
No, I think now.
Oh, actually-
Now's when you do it, because it's part of your report that you.
That's
deliver
right,
to the
because
public.
as Jason said, he goes, it was good. We should have had this for the town meeting on 5/1, so. Okay, so make a motion to accept the CRC response. Oh, I already did that, and seconded by Commissioner Hoag. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
5-0-0. Approved. Since I just closed everything out, that's not what I wanted to do, but I believe, next meeting topics, no need to have anything about next meeting topics. Our next meeting is gonna be 5/1 at the Fire Training Center. And that will be a special meeting, and it will be in town forum. As required statutorily, right? Statutorily. Public comment,
Can I ask Phil a question?
please. Yes, public comment time, please.
At the end of the 2022 discussion, they said it was supposed to go to the RTM at some point. But,
This document?
no, well, I mean, I know a couple of years ago, they made a mistake and put it to the RTM, the RTM wasn't supposed to be done.
We had,
No, it doesn't, I mean,
They said they weren't going to take it to the RTM for the right time.
maybe that was.
to the RTM,
Last
I mean, maybe that was something that they wanted to do to, just, just because, but it's not required, but, and the RTM has no authority. It's the Board of Selectmen decision on,
No, it's not the appointing authority, RTM.
the RTM is not the appointing.
And that-
It was, I think there was something about town clerks, the town clerk will have to write a summary of what is in there. And I think there was
oh, the town clerk.
limited right of the RTM to, I don't know, look at it, or there's something about that, I think. The RTM has very, very limited, option to do a certain thing, I think, related to that.
A lot of them were at the meetings anyway, so
Pardon?
a lot of the
No, I was
RTM
Jason
members
about
came to the meetings.
Yeah,
One particular.
yeah.
Okay, any other comment? I don't see anyone online.
What I wanted to do is kind of just quickly go over the summary. We're not going to go through it in detail.
Oh, yes, please.
So I prepared kind of a
Share,
summary
are you on
overall.
the?
I'm not on them. If you don't mind, it's in your email.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'm not on the, I didn't join.
No,
the
no
Zoom.
problem.
So I don't think it's good group work to read it line by line, but maybe kind of walk you through kind of the idea, and then Chris, you kind of tell us how you want to.
I think I have the wrong email. That's the minutes. When did you send this to me today?
Summary of draft recommendation.
Midday.
You talking about the town clerk summary?
257
is-
I have, that's when I got it.
Oh, it came through, yep, came through CRC, got it.
So the intent of this is a little bit of a sales document in a way. Because realistically, most people are not going to read the charter. And even if they did, they would probably struggle to make sense of all the changes. And so if you just scroll up to the top, first, it starts with just trying to make it clear that this is a summary document. Maybe you can help on the language, Phil, there, but like, this is not meant to be like the exact language, because it doesn't have all the details.
Sure.
So it's trying to rely. I thought you might want to add an introduction, Chris, and I thought just starting out with the goals of kind of or objectives, how we really thought about it, would help provide that. And then what I did is group the changes into, a handful of kind of core improvements.
Yep.
Increased focus on ethics, strengthening checks and balances, and good governance practices.
Sorry, this is the document that, in theory, we were going to deliver to the Board of Selectmen.
Well, this is something that I think would help from a public perspective.
So as a primer to the,
Exactly.
yeah, got
And
it.
also, I
think
do
that's
think it would
great.
help the board too.
Yep.
Um,
I think
Does it
this
make
is, I
sense
think
to
this is great, yeah.
Great.
So we're focusing on ethics, we're strengthening checks and balances and good government
I
practices.
love that, yeah.
We're increasing focus on ensuring town operations are effective and efficient.
I would personally break WPCA out and say, better words than this, but better define WPCA. I think that's, I know if I was an outside observer, knowing what I know about the WPCA, I would want somebody that said, you know what? We looked at the WPCA hard and we revised it. I like the increased focus on ensuring town operations, but I think WPCA kind of owns its own bullet, but
And then improved town's ability to hire great talent,
I love it.
modernize the charter in several areas, and
This
then
is great.
address known issues with certain boards and commissions. And then what I thought was also important is just to make sure people understood that we did actually consider a lot of things and did not approve them. Because there will be questions on, hey, why didn't you think about that? Well, we did.
No, I like it.
And so that's really like a laundry list, just of things that we did, and then there's a conclusion. So that's the document that I think could help on helping at a higher level, communicate the body of work.
Yeah,
More digestible fashion than.
I think it's great.
I had one thought.
Yep.
Under strengthen checks and balances of good government practices. The reduced allowable population variance between RTM districts.
Oh, sorry, Jerry, that's right.
No, that's all right. In our current world, I didn't want this to look like it was something DEI or anything like that. Put what the old standard was, and that all we did was change it from not greater than 10% to 10% or something like that.
Yeah.
We're not trying to have some social engineering going on.
Yeah, we're not trying to game it. Yeah.
Right.
I was
So maybe
thinking,
just put the before and after in there, right? Yeah, that's a,
as I picked it up, I
I
said,
apologize, Jerry. I know you brought that up to me before and I told you.
is that a lightning rod that people know, what the hell are these people doing now? And it's-
Yeah, the word district and districting is always a little bit of a lightning rod, right? So I think that's great.
Otherwise, it's a great doc. I thought it was very helpful.
I love the topics overall. I think the topics really, like, wait a minute, you're strengthening checks and balances and good government practices. Just that, I go, wow, why should I vote for this? Well, because
Yeah.
if you took away all the bullets and just left those top things, I think that's a great list, but it's,
You can have some general sections in your questions, like we changed the terms or we tried to coordinate
Right.
the terms.
right.
Exactly.
That's a general kind of comment you make.
Exactly. The only other comment I would make is, I like the considered and rejected. Is there anything here?
I didn't include every single thing, but you.
No, I
could
know,
probably say
and
some-
I had to, like prohibiting activity for senior employees. I don't want the Fairfield senior advocates coming after my butt, because that's not what that means. You meant senior employees as in,
Oh,
Your
when,
level.
when I read that from Gervis, like, I'm like, what are we talking about? People over 60 or 65? And like, no, senior. So I just don't want people, there are certain people who will look at that and go, wait a minute,
I would
Um,
suggest taking out the underlining, because I don't think we need to say that we emphasize that we're rejecting, we considered and rejected.
Like, say that? What do you really mean by it?
just that we
What is this?
considered.
sidewalk developer fees. I have no, do we?
Yeah, we did,
I can
actually.
guess, but
Yeah, we actually, we did, when, the zoning.
we were kinda doing a wrap up.
the zoning- The planning and zoning person, I'm totally drawing, like, the name was here.
oh, Jim went.
Yes.
Okay. I like it. Yeah, I think it's great.
So-
It's just
What I was thinking then is, maybe Chris, you and me over the weekend, we can finish this up,
Sure.
and then we can post it, or however you wanna do it.
No, I think that's great.
And I guess
That's great.
any other comments, Karen, if you had any comment, or anyone have any comments, and I did include you and Jason, Phil, if there was anything you're like, whoa, don't say it that
Hey,
way.
don't say that. Right. I was gonna throw it out to the commission and Ms. Ewing and the town attorney as well. So for 5-1, I was gonna do just an introductory couple seconds, what we've been working on, like a, 50,000 foot. Do you think I should have like a PowerPoint presentation, Phil, that goes over the high points, or? I don't wanna bore everybody with PowerPoint. I mean, I'd have like 4 or 5 slides, but I don't know if that adds any value.
I mean, if you did, what you would do is
I would-
just headings.
I'm telling you, that's
Yeah.
exactly what I would do.
What do you see the obligation of the presentation to be? An opportunity for the public to comment on the project, or the product that we're producing, or for you as the chairman to explain the product that we produced?
I guess it's more of the latter, more of a sales job than I guess if anyone walks in that building, like, why am I here tonight? Which is unlikely, but I'm saying, maybe just as a primer to just say, this is the stuff you should be looking for, But I was gonna do exactly, I was gonna take your topics and just,
I would keep it short. I think the purpose of it is to receive public input.
Yeah,
okay.
I think some explanation of what you guys focused on is probably helpful to educate the people that are interested in watching,
Okay.
and then also provoke, more robust dialogue. But
Okay.
I think the point of that is to hear from people what they care about.
Right. I think I'm gonna steal your topics. I'll have you look at it, and then I will, my introductory statements, I'll kind of, say a couple words, but nothing crazy.
I think that sounds good.
The over-under's 10 people.
I'm on the under, I gotta say.
I'm there. And that includes us.
Oh, my under does include us or Judy Ewing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see that there's any groundswell out there of people that are interested, so.
Listen, maybe I'm a little delusional, but I would think that if I were somebody sitting at home and had a real problem with this process and any real, I would get on the website and I would post comments and I would, basically make my intentions known. And except for a few,
It's very different. This time around is very different from in 2022, because there were issues. The RTM people came out, and there was some Republican, Democratic concerns.
it was a lot more political, I think.
Well, one of the items on the agenda was to discuss whether or not you want a minority representation on the RTM,
Yeah.
and that got a lot of discussion. And
And the size of the RTM, and also for a
Well-
while, they were considering changing the structure of the government, right, which was,
Yeah.
Well, that's because Mednick wasn't familiar with our
Yeah.
particular type of government. He thought we should have a town council And that took a lot of time.
It's a funny story because I was still an elected official when this was going on, and I intentionally didn't really pay attention. I kind of wanted to let them get through the document, look at it, and do all the stuff. And I remember hearing through social media some of the comments that were made, like, and some of them were very political. And then when I opened up the document, like the change of government, right? We're going to make the RTM 800 people or 2 people or whatever it was. And then I open up the final document, I'm like, wow, I don't see any of this in here. So I think a lot of people were influenced by the social media stuff. And the real meat of it, if you read it, it's probably pretty good.
Well, partly that's because there were comments and that got
Agreed.
incorporated into
Yeah.
changes, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there were a lot of good things in there. They did a lot of good work.
Listen, I said this to Bill the other day. I said, we didn't use that as our baseline document, but it wasn't because we didn't think it was a good document. We just thought it was better to go back to as you so accurately put it, the charter, the only charter we have, right?
I would just say though, if you know people who either did oppose it or are
As do you.
likely to, I would reach out to them.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I'm gonna go down and talk to my neighbor and like try to get him to come to the meeting and give him the summary and like, hey.
Yep.
The opposition
see
came at
issues.
the end when the Board of Selectmen voted to not put all the questions on one side of the ballot because the Secretary of the State said you couldn't because they had state questions on the ballot.
Right.
I'm very curious to see how they're gonna draft the questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the real work, Phil, that's left.
Yeah. That's
Right.
not us.
It's not, I mean, I told Bill, I said, I'd
It's
be,
the art of it.
I told Bill I'd be happy to, give my 2 cents, but I mean, ultimately, yeah, it is a Board of Selectmen, And I can't remember, I think it might have been John Matola said, you better find out what else is on the ballot because they were limited. Did you know about this? They were limited for space on the ballot because there were state resolutions that were being, so they're like, okay, so, priority number 1, we gotta have names of people we need to elect. Priority 2, state stuff. And then if there's any little room left, we'll jam your stuff in.
They said they put the 3 general questions on the front, but the specific 7 questions would have to go on the back. But that's a lot of questions too.
7 questions is a lot.
And it's hard to sell it. What does this mean, why did they discuss this?
And what do you do? This is what I always struggle with. 7 questions. I'm in favor of 6, but that 7th one, man, just really ticks me off. Do you vote no? Or do you kind of say, well, it's a,
Why don't you just vote no on the seventh question then?
well, I guess, that's right, because it's independent, each question,
I
right?
mean, as long as the questions are such that they, whatever the legal term is, severability type of thing.
They are,
or in
that's
a
why
way.
you have separate questions, and sometimes in charter revision, some things pass, some things don't. Right.
So if you have 7 questions and no one votes for number 7, and that's the deletion of the surety bonds, we'd have to add it back in.
It would be back.
Yeah,
It
it
would be back in.
removed. It would just.
Oh, yeah, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I mean, that's one of the reasons I was thinking about.
That's why omnibus questions suck.
It's all or nothing.
Yeah, it's a crapshoot at that point,
I
right?
mean, that's where I was in some ways thinking about this, because in some ways there's like 6, maybe 7 questions here. And you have to make sure they're in a way where they don't if one loses, does that kill one of the others? You have to make sure they truly are
Yes,
severable
right.
in drafting.
Well, but I mean, that's,
Severable.
Jason's gonna be
Yeah.
assistance in that, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be, again, that's a, yeah. Okay, no more public comment. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Move to adjourn. Third. Second by Commissioner Treshik. All in favor? Aye. 500 approved. Thank you very much, Commissioner Wackerman. I hope you feel better.
Thank you. We'll see you May 1st.